Now we'll look at how to start with the outline of a wall and lay out the roof plan. And we're going to look at just the theoretical steps here. In the next lecture, not this one, but the next one, we will look at our actual assignment and what it should look like. So here is more the theoretical stuff. You start by drawing the wall, which you see is this dashed line. You draw the wall from your floor plan, and then you offset from there to make the roof overhang. So if this building had a 24-inch overhang, you would draw the dashed line for the wall, and then you would use the offset command and offset a distance of 24 inches on each side. Then you look at the floor plan, and unless you have a simple box-shaped house, you probably have some stuff sticking out like this L shape here. And you try to divide that floor plan into rectangles, as few as possible. And usually there'll be one rectangle that's bigger than the other, like rectangle 1 in the middle example, or rectangle 1 in the far right example. And you think about, of those two rectangles that you've got, which one is the widest? And in the case of this example here, dimension B is wider than dimension A, so dimension B is going to be our major roof zone. And if we have a ridge going through our roof, it's going to start by going through section 1. This is a different floor plan, so different shape than the last slide. This is out of our book. Once you have your roof divided into rectangles, now you draw a line through the center of each rectangle, and that's going to be the ridge of your roof. And you can see that our author here has made two different attempts with the same floor plan. In the one at the top, there's a ridge running lengthwise of that main rectangle, and then gables running perpendicular to that. And when you think about it, you realize that is probably going to be a lot better idea than the one at the bottom where they run parallel, which is going to be weird. And a guideline is we draw gables like this guy here. We draw gables at right angles to each other. So here's a big gable, here's a smaller gable. And this lets the water drain off through the valley. If you make gables parallel to each other, what you wind up with is a nice trough here that collects the rainwater, and then you've got a big problem and a recipe for leakage, and then you have to come in with sheet metal or other stuff. So don't do that. You want your gable perpendicular to another gable, like this. Then, where gables intersect roofs, you draw 45-degree angles. Now you might have to bounce back and forth between the plan view, which we see here, and an elevation view so that you can see how high is this gable supposed to be. That might tell you where your ridge is going to end, and we'll look at that in the next PowerPoint. But wherever your ridge of your gable ends, you just draw two 45-degree lines. And that's in the top view, 45 degrees in the top view. And you can see, again, if you make the gables parallel, the whole thing falls apart. So you want the gables perpendicular to each other, and then you can put some nice 45-degree lines in here, which represent the valleys looking down from above. If you have a hip roof rather than just a plain gable, with a hip roof, remember, you have 3 or more surfaces intersecting each other. No problem, you still just draw 45-degree angles. So here's the ridge of the roof, here's the hip. We just draw 45-degree lines at that end of the hip. Here's a little bit more complex hip roof, but still you can see all those lines are 45 degrees. That's almost always true unless we're doing something weird, and we don't want to do things that are weird with our roof framing. So we'll have nice perpendicular gables, and we'll have nice 45-degree lines. And then here, also out of our book, here is another example of a roof plan looking down from above. So we're seeing the hips and the valleys. And again, remember that this is just the top view. It looks like it's 45 degrees viewed from above. That's not the slope of the roof. That's just what it looks like from the sky. And now the secret to tricky overlapping roofs is after you get all these 45-degree lines laid in, anytime you see one 45-degree line lying over the top of another 45-degree line, like we see happening in C here, and what we've got here is some kind of hip-roofed stick-on to another hip-roofed main roof. So where we see these two lines overlapping each other, that's our clue that we should get out our erase command and just erase the whole thing from inside there. Get that out of there, and you are left with this nice flat surface here with those lines erased. Now we'll look at just a few examples of the same floor plan, but with different roof styles. So a floor plan that looks kind of like a, I don't know, an H or a J or something, with a hip roof at the top, or with gable roofs at the bottom. Here's a different floor plan with hip roofs at the top and gable roofs at the bottom. And notice how you can see how the designer here has erased out some overlapping lines where one 45-degree from a hip intersected another 45-degree from a hip. He just erased that out of there. Here are some more examples. An L-shaped floor plan with gables on the right, step by step, or with hip roofs on the right. Here we are laying out a more complex sort of a house where we're going to put on gable roofs, and we're dividing the floor plan into major rectangles. We're splitting the rectangles with ridge lines down the center. We're making the gables at right angles to each other, and there we are. Oh, and then we're putting in our 45-degree valley lines. Here's a complex floor plan with hips, and the hips intersecting each other. This gets kind of complicated to look at, but if you look in step 3 here, where you see some 45-degree lines would lie over the top of each other, our drafter has erased out the overlapping lines, and this is the kind of roof shape we're left with. And after you've done a few of these, if you do, you'll get used to picturing what this actually looks like on a real roof, and then it's a little bit easier to imagine what it is you're going to be erasing. So here are two examples of the same floor plan: gable roofs on the left, hip roofs on the right. And again, the key idea, this is a different floor plan. This house has intersecting hips, but the key idea is when you have 45-degree lines from hips or valleys that lie over the top of each other, that overlap each other, that's a sign that you want to just erase the whole line out of there. That's going to turn into what you see at the bottom here, a big, flat, sloping expanse of roof. All right, now in the next slide, the next lecture, we'll look at how to draw elevations from these and then how to do our actual assignment.